So after all the subtractions, what remained with me, and I should say, my church was lovely. When Paul and I got married, I asked the minister from my church when I was a kid to marry us, and I explained kindly that I didn't really want a big religious ceremony, just something simple and spiritual, not religious, which I'm sure he hears a million times these days. And in fact, when times were hardest, I used to walk to church just to not be home. I used to go to church on my own, like when I was like 10. So it was hard for me to turn my back at this. But honestly, after all the subtractions, what remained with me when I left the Methodist Church was this. I believed that a very special human being named Jesus probably did live at one time and was a loving, caring person who positively influenced people when he was alive and inspired them in his tragic death. I believed in the forgiveness of sins by one human to another and in being a good person, which I think probably the Methodists are like, oh, good, well, some of that stuck, yay. You know, the good parts stuck. That's what I hope they would think. And so I carried on in life, a young woman who had stopped believing, and it was fine. Then things happened. My older sister was killed in a car accident. She was 21 and I was 17, and my whole world was upended. Her death was a God moment for me. The idea that God controlled everything was exercised in my mind. So was heaven. After all, my stake in heaven was greater than ever now. I examined those ideas very closely and carefully, but I just still did not believe them. I believed accidents happen, and that Cheryl, like many other people in the world, had been the unfortunate victim of happenstance. The driver who collided with her recklessly but accidentally was also only 21. And it did dawn on me that his life, too, has been forever changed. And I felt compassion for him, despite my pain. So, if not heaven, what did I believe? Was Cheryl just gone? No, I didn't really believe that. But then where had she gone? What happened to her soul, the part of her that made her Cheryl, that made her smile? So I settled on a vision that I had in my mind of this sparkle of her life, her scattering of shimmering atoms, just arising into the night sky and joining a flow of other sparkling lives, becoming part of the energy that moves through all things, the energy of life and of the universe. In whatever way she moved on, unknown and unknowable by me, that vision was what I believed, and I still do. I'm free to make my own mythology about heaven. In the reading that Paul read at the beginning of the service, Pema Chodron says, "We also experience egolessness when we don't know what's happening, when we've lost our reference point, when we get a shock and our mind is stopped. We can notice our reactions to that. Sometimes we open further, sometimes we quickly shut down. For those in my family who believed in an omniscient God, a caring God, a controlling God, a heaven and a hell, Cheryl's death was a reckoning. How could God take Cheryl? Why? Grief and anger put them at opposition to their God in a power struggle for understanding that they could never win. Some were driven away from God, betrayed, to a lifetime of bitterness, anger, and resignation. I think their relationship with God made it harder, not easier, to accept her death. For my family members who had a different kind of faith, their ability to accept the unknowability of God's plan as they saw it allowed them to seek comfort in prayer and heaven, not like blind followers, but like people who were given the worst situation and relied on their foundation to keep going.